What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at prices from Modern Horizons 3. First time trying this in a while with the face cam as we go through and do this. I like to do the editing for the videos, but like for the market watch, looking at market stuff, it's a lot easier, I think, to just have this kind of layout so you guys can see all the data. So that's what I'm working with. If you like it, let me know. If you like the other format better, let me know on that one too. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and jump into this and talk about it. There is a lot of content to talk about. The set is officially released everywhere now, and all the pre-order restrictions have been lifted off of, TCG players. So you'll see there are tons of listings of a lot of things. And so what I want to look at today is kind of what is worth going in on early, what might be worth waiting on. And again, this is not necessarily like financial advice. It's more so just for information purposes, and kind of going to tell you guys a little bit what I did. But one of the things I've learned about Magic after switching from Yu-Gi-Oh for so long is that in Yu-Gi-Oh, when pre-releases are over and the set's actually out, typically what happens is cards drop pretty significantly over a couple weeks, and you wait till the kind of FOMO is over. With Magic, what I've noticed is the drop happens pretty quick, and then the buyout happens pretty quick too. People will look at cards that are reprints and say, man, this is super cheap, I'm going to buy a bunch of these, and then they'll start to go up. And this has been a wild pre-sale season already for Modern Horizons, because we've seen a lot of cards go up in price before even actually being, widespread available for purchase. So that's kind of what the intent of today's video is. And we're going to just start off with it. So if you guys do enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and then click the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. I do appreciate the support as always. Natu Winged Wisdom has everyone talking. It is going to be very, very strong in Modern, but it is also going to be very strong in Commander. And he has quite a few different variants here. The foil etched one is interesting to me because it's around, well, actually, if you take the lowest listing away, you're looking at about 40, but if you leave the lowest listing, it's around 33. The thing about that is that the foil etched are only in collector boosters, and from what I've seen, they do not pop up often. It's not like the Commander Masters collector boosters where you're guaranteed one in each pack. This seems to be pretty random, maybe one a box or two, if even. Some of the boxes I've seen opened actually didn't have any, so I don't know what the ratios are on this, but I will tell you that this card only has 5 listings, which means it is, it's very likely that it is going to not be a massively accessible card, even if it was, a lesser played card. So if you really like the foil etch and it's one you want to go in on, I do think it's probably likely that the card will go up. I mean, it started out pretty high and then dipped, and now is already rebounding because people are going after it. Would you consider it technically the highest rarity? Perhaps, because it's the hardest one to get, but it really depends on how you look at them and what your preference is. Good news is the regular version of Natu is down quite a bit. So he started out around 15, got a pretty sizable spike where he went from like 15 up to over 20, and now is closer to around $13, $14 maybe. And the foil's around 14 as well. This is going to be really interesting to watch. I don't expect this card to necessarily go crazy for this version, because there is the foil etched version for people looking for higher end, and then there's the borderless, which we'll talk about in a second, for people that are maybe looking for a mid rarity. But it's a really strong card, and if it is played as a 4 of in Modern, or multiple copies at the very least, you could see copies disappearing off the market. But right now, there's 291 listings. There's plenty of this available. $12 I think is a fair price to pay for him, but you could see him go down a couple bucks more, or he may go in the other direction. I do think this card is one of the biggest what-ifs for the set as a whole in terms of its trajectory, so we'll have to see kind of where he ends up. Now, the borderless version, of course, I don't love the artwork on this. A lot of people do. Borderless version's around 14, and then the foil is around 22, 23. Last night, it was like over 30, so obviously you see people rushing to list, but you see some sold listings here too. It depends on if you like the art style. I think the foil borderless will definitely do okay over time, more than likely, as long as the card continues to see play. But I mean, if you're talking about spending 12 for the regular or 14 for the borderless, I say throw the extra couple bucks personally and get a nicer version, arguably. But if you're not a fan of the profile artworks, and just I'm not a huge fan of this one in general, like I said, we've got the regular one and we've got the etched one, so you've got a good selection on him. He's pretty much a bit of a wild card. So Ulamog the Defiler has led the set in pre-sales pretty much, and was as high as 100, has started to fall back out. He's around $50, let's call it, at the cheapest. I don't know where I'd fall on this in terms of purchasing it. I think he's very, very good, obviously. It's an Eldrazi, so it's going to be popular, and the better it is and the more play it sees, the more people will want to go after it. Again, there's over 250 listings of him, so it's not like stock does not exist, but I could see some of the Eldrazi starting to rise maybe over the next couple months. You could probably safely wait this out a little bit and let him drop a couple bucks lower as people start to list and be a little bit more competitive, but I would say, you know, it's not the worst way to spend the $50. What I would also say, as I do this live in the middle of the video here, is that the borderless variant of him is holding along quite strongly. He's around, I don't know, 80 bucks or 150 for the foil. People love this concept style art. I think it looks really sick. I mean, if money is something, you know, that's not a huge factor in this for you, I would say spend the extra 30 bucks and get this version, because we've seen for the other concept Praetors that they did back in March of the Machine, and obviously this being Eldrazi, they're probably going to hold their value better than any of the other variants. So, you know, $30 is not a small sum of money for a lot of people, especially if you're playing on a budget. But I do think in terms of that variant, this one is going to end up being a very, very highly desired card, and it does look absolutely sick. Emrakul is very affordable now at around $28. That's a great price for a card that was pre-selling as high as $70 to $80 about a month ago. It's extremely strong. It will see a lot of play, and we have seen historically that the Emrakuls and whatever you want to call them variants have actually been doing really well over time. I mean, we just got one reprinted in a secret lair a couple months ago. It's already risen a little bit, and we had two back-to-back, well, not back-to-back, but a few months apart, commander decks with Eldrazi support that did a lot to raise those prices. So I definitely think it's going to be, you know, a card that's in demand. 28 bucks. I mean, I don't think it gets much lower than that. I don't see it going lower than 25 personally, unless there's just so much other stuff that goes up that the value displacement has to happen that way. But I would say it's probably safe to assume that the 29 is going to be a decent value on Emrakul. Urza's Incubator, another card I wanted to mention quickly here. This is a $7 card that was as high as $25, and when it was reprinted in Dominaria Remastered, the price didn't really even drop that much. It did for a bit, and then it went back up. Typically, we see this a lot with staple cards that don't have a ton of printings, and this one, you know, it has a couple, but in the past, I don't know, nearly 10 years, it's only been printed twice. And, you know, Urza's Incubator from Dominaria Remastered actually went up as high as 35 at one point at the market price. I think once we knew this was going to get reprinted, people kind of stopped going after it as much, but every other copy has gone up, and I think this will do exactly the same. This card will 100% rise back in value, as most staples do. Speaking of which, Ruby Medallion, a double dip reprint for the medallions after Commander Masters. This card is $3. All the medallions, just for full transparency, if you don't have them and you want them, this is the time to buy. That's just like flat out, and this is a foil one too at that price. $3 for these, and now they're modern legal, so they are going to see play in modern. I know Ruby specifically is seeing a lot of play in the Ruby Storm deck, and it's just one of those cards that, like, over time it will go back up. There's just not enough of them, I don't think, on the market to see it not happen that way. I mean, the card's only been printed twice, well, 3 times if you count Tempest, which is very old, but it's a very, very strong card that sees play in multiple formats that just is at a very, very good price right now. So any of the medallions, really, my honest recommendation for you would be, and kind of what I might look to do, is to go for the borderless versions of the medallions, because first of all, they're by all accounts like the highest, you know, rarity in terms of what'll hold their value, but they just look amazing too. All 5 of them look incredible, and they're all pretty affordable. $6. You're paying an extra $2.80 for a much nicer version of the card that will likely be the more desired one. So if you are buying it and, you know, wanting to go after that, I think the medallions are at a good price right now. Maybe wait another week, maybe, but I don't know how much lower they'll really go. For a card like that. Shifting Woodland, definitely one of my MVP cards from this set. It's a very, very strong card. It can become a copy of any permanent in your grave if you have 4 or more card types there. Little while to set up, but it's not nearly that hard, and obviously because it doesn't enter tapped if you control a forest, it can be just, you know, kind of on curve. It's around $5, let's say. I bought one this morning, actually. I bought the borderless one for $6. I think either one's a good deal. All 5 of the lands that they released that are, I guess, of this cycle have some merit, in my opinion. I think some are stronger than others, but this one is definitely the best. But at 4 and change, 5 and change, I mean, you can read the card for itself and kind of determine that it's probably going to at some point be one that that you'll want to at least have access to. And for $5, that ain't bad. So that's Shifting Woodlands, definitely one I would say is an MVP. Ugin's Binding is a really good card too. It's about $15. It's like a Psych Rift on steroids. Obviously a little bit less generic than Psych Rift, but in the right deck it can be devastating. And the regular version of this card is around $12. So there's only like a difference of $4 or $5. You get sick artwork here. This card, again, feels like another sleeper card for down the road. Just worth keeping an eye on. I adore the artwork on this. I said this in the initial review video, too. It just looks incredibly cool, and I think it's good. I think maybe wait it out till it hits 10. I mean, the price is obviously rounding it out a bit, but you're already seeing some copies selling at 16. I don't know if someone got duped by a TCG Player Direct or what, but if you get this card around 10, 11 bucks, I think you're doing pretty well. Strict Serenade is another one that's really good. It's right up there with Swan Song in terms of its design, and this one instead counters artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers. Just another really good option for blue, and this is around $3.50. I don't know Swan Song's price off the top of my head, but I think it's around, yeah, so we'll say around $9 to $10. We did see it get a reprint in the Tales of Middle-earth, but it has since gone way back up. And so what I'll tell you here is just look at the chart for a card like this, and then look at the fact that you have, you know, this is very similar. This hits other things, but like the bottom out point and then the eventual rise for a card that is just generically good has tried and true been a method of Magic the Gathering for quite some time. Strict Serenade is a good counterspell with, you know, the only other print that it has outside of the pre-release is it does have a borderless one, and that one is around $4.99. So again, it comes down to preference. You like the art, you like the basic ones, what have you, but this is a card I would be getting if you're a fan or plan on playing it in blue. And then we've got Warren Soul Trader. If you read this card, it's insane. It's not a hard once per turn in any capacity. $8.99 is actually pretty good. It was as high as, you know, 40, and then obviously as things dip it, I think we kind of expected it would probably settle out. It'll probably fall out another $1 or $2 when all is said and done, but it looks like the foil is holding its value quite well, and I think that will likely be the case, because you can just read this card and see where it's going to have a bazillion. I mean, it's just another card that can one-turn kill with, like, Gravecrawler and anything that can deal damage when a creature dies, so plenty. Blood Artist, maybe. There's so many different combinations you can do with this to make it work. I would keep an eye on Warren Soul Trader, either the regular variant or this one. I think I pulled this one up too. The regular variant's actually $6, so again, the price difference between the premium version, quote unquote, and the regular version is not that significant. Just up to you whether or not you like it, what your preference is. Toxic Deluge, just a quick note here. Obviously, this has been reprinted quite a few times. This card is $2.50, which is just a really, really good price for a card that every other version of, including the most recently reprinted ones, have gone up to $8. This will follow suit, I promise. It will absolutely follow suit. So if you want to get it super cheap, maybe grab an extra copy for your decks. That's probably the time to do it. I mean, the facts are just there. Amped Raptor is an uncommon from the set that is really, really strong. It's good for energy, but in general, you know, being able to bypass, it's got like a pseudo Cascade-ish effect where you can exile cards, and then as long as you have enough energy, you can play it without paying its mana cost. It's less than $1, and the foil's about $2, but maybe more so just to like note if you open up a bunch of product put aside, because I think it's a really strong card, and we have seen uncommons out of Horizon sets go up after a little bit, you know, just in general. Kozilek, $17. He's the weakest of the new Titans by far. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's necessarily incredible either. I don't feel strongly enough to give any kind of recommendation on this guy one way or another, because I have no real clue what he's going to look like when all is said and done. But, you know, he's down from 44. He's down 21, 18. If I was saying on this, I'd probably wait. I just don't think it's going to see that much play, unless people are playing any commander. Or if someone breaks it, because there's always that possibility, of course, that something just gets completely cracked open in Modern or another format. But I mean, reading it anyway, looking at it, I don't see where it's gonna generate that type of advantage for you that the other ones will. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a price video without talking about the fetch lands. Polluted Delta's at 13. I bought one this morning at 12. They have been selling like absolute crazy, but there's still over 380 listings. These fetch lands, I mean, I don't need to give you a lecture on the fetch lands, right? They're around $10. 10. Windswept Heath, I think, was as low as 9. This is the time to buy. Like, I could scream this up. If you want fetch lands and you don't have these, now is the time to get them. They will go back up. It happened with Modern Horizons 2. I'll show you if you're watching the video and you're uncertain. Modern Horizons 2, Marsh Flats, this card, you know, was down when I started playing again. So you see the graph is kind of wild the way it spikes, and it's just on an upward trajectory now, especially with the other ones getting reprinted, excuse me. It's just one of those things. The fetch lands are fetch lands. They're going to go back up over time. Within a year, these will probably all be well over $18, $20, I would think. You know, these haven't been reprinted for a while. There's going to be a mass amount of them flooding the market, but this is the time where, like, if you're playing a big commander player, you play budget, these are, you know, in a solidly budget range now for cards that make a massive impact on your deck's consistency. And some decks that would be considered bad or lesser are just significantly improved just by putting the fetch lands in. So this is the time to grab them. I mean, there's some other variants and stuff. I think the retro frames are going to be pretty pricey when all is said and done. But if you just want some cheap variants of these fetch lands, you got them right here. They're all here for you. And I would definitely think a lot of people will be looking at it with those mindsets as well. Couple quick notes to wrap up the video today. Flare of Denial, this one does feel pretty strong to me. Not as strong necessarily as like Force of Negation or what have you, but it's pretty good. It's got some different application, and it's a free cast card, meaning you can cast it without paying mana. We saw with Fierce Guardianship, which is probably an objectively better card, that these cards will do well over time, and I don't think this will be any exception. This is another card I've already picked up. You know, the rest of the Flare cycle is pretty cheap, but I would recommend maybe having a copy of each just to, you know, for your own benefit, I suppose. Just a really, really strong card. You might be able to wait this one out a little bit. It might go down to like 8 to 10 versus its low of 12.50 right now, but we'll have to see what how that actually shakes up in the coming days. And finally, Ocelot Pride is a wicked strong card. It is just extremely good in all facets, and I covered it quite a bit when we did our video back on you know, on the actual reveals, but I just wanted to mention it again. It's a really, really solid card. I don't know what the good price point's going to be for this. At 16, it's like a little high. Is it going to... But, I mean, it's not a legendary creature. You can play it in multiples. It's very, very strong. Just maybe one to keep an eye on. Again... It was starting out pretty high. The borderless version is still pretty high as far as I remember. When I obviously I can't cover every single card in one video. Yeah, the borderless versions are on 33, so it's nearly double the price, and about 65 for the foil. So, you know, there's some pricier versions of this. It's a great card. It's very, very strong. I would definitely recommend, you know, when you're shopping around, consider whether or not that's something you might want to play, and where the value may go. That's the deal with this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this format, but also, like, are you interested in picking up any of these cards? What have you already put your money towards? If you're buying stuff, I've said before on record, I think this set is really, really good. I understand it's a little bit more pricey, but I mean, Modern Horizons 2 was also pricier. It's not that drastic in terms of the actual return on cards you're getting versus what you're paying. You know, Outlaws is cheaper, yes, but like I was able to get these at my locals for $8 a pack, and I'd rather pay the extra $2 or $3 for a much higher likelihood of return. Of course, singles is always going to be the way to go if you want to be sensible about it, so keep that in mind when making those decisions. But I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.